Welcome to Travel Talk with Joy. I'm Joy. I've traveled to all 50 states. I've been to all 7 continents. On most of my adventures, I do it with my husband, who's a full-time wheelchair user. Come meet amazing people who travel through life a little differently as we explore the world of accessible travel. Let's go! Welcome to Travel Talk with Joy. I'm so happy that we have a new episode today, and I wanted to first just talk about Paralympics. I hope everyone enjoyed watching. It was amazing to see how much more content they had this Paralympics than they did in the 2021 games. So that was really great. Love seeing some of the guests that we've had on the past couple weeks compete. Second thing, if you're someone that wants to be in a group workout group, Bert, my husband, he has a group called Low Rollers Club that he's joined recently. And whether you are using a hand cycle, whether you push around your neighborhood, whether you're doing a hand bike, a hand ergonomer bike, they have people that do everything. They have someone that walks on a treadmill, and there's a group leader that's doing all the same things that a spin class leader would. So that's really fun. And if you're interested in that, you can just DM Bert Burns at Facebook, or just leave a message in the comments and he'll get in touch with you to join that group. It's free and just a great way to work out. And then another thing, at Wheel the World, we've launched some new group tours that I highly recommend. Italy and Mexico, there's some good ones there that we will talk a little bit later in today's episode about, but I want you guys to be thinking about group tours. But the most important thing today is our guest. So our guest today is Cory Lee. Cory and I met several years ago, and we tried to meet in 2020, but then had a little issue with COVID. So our trip finally happened in 2021. And welcome today, Cory.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on the show. I love what you're doing and this show that you have. So it's an honor to be here with you.
Well, I'm so excited you're here. I started following Cory about 5 years ago from afar. And then in 2019, I saw that he had this trip that was going to happen to Chile. And I told my husband, I'm like, I want to meet that guy. And I don't even care about Chile, but I want to meet that guy. And so I'm not a stalker, I swear. I'm just very passionate about who I want to meet. So I signed up for the trip to Chile, and I didn't even know about Wheel the World back then. And so we did this whole trip to Chile. It was Cory, myself, my husband, and then 2 other wheelchair users that I didn't know. And we had such a good time exploring Chile together. And I got to meet Cory Lee.
And
Dreams
it
can come
was,
true.
yeah. And I got to meet Julie Burns. So it was a good trip.
It was incredible. So, I've gotten to know a lot more about Cory over the past couple of years, and just now I'm a little bit probably on fangirl obsession, the way that I make sure I see everywhere he goes, because Cory is someone that truly inspires me to travel more, because I'm like, man, he's on the grind all the time traveling, and I love it. So, um, I'm just going to go ahead and go into it so you guys can know more about Cory and learn a little bit more of his passion for travel. So just let's start from the beginning, Cory. So for those that don't even know what SMA is, if you could first tell a little bit about what that is, how you got diagnosed, how it affects you, to start with kind of where you are with the disability.
Of course. So at the age of 2, I was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy type 2. And SMA is a genetic neuromuscular disorder that affects the motor neurons in the spinal cord, and it does cause progressive muscle degeneration over time. So, to put that simply, basically, my muscles do weaken over time. So, I don't have the same abilities today that I'll have 5 years from now, or 10 years into the future, or that I had when I was
Hmm.
younger. So when I was younger and when I was first diagnosed, I could walk a few steps. So my mom says that the most steps that I ever really took was about 8 steps. And then I would just fall down and like face plant the ground. And so that's why she started getting a bit concerned, like, why is he falling so much? And so she took me to the doctor and they did a muscle biopsy. And that's when they discovered that I had SMA.
Okay. So when did you start using a wheelchair?
So I started using a powered wheelchair at the age of 4. So it was pretty
Wow.
shortly, only a couple years after being diagnosed. So I was really, really young in that power chair. And I remember like vividly, like my first days of using it. And I was like pretty much terrified of using the power chair. And like I was afraid I was going to run over everyone and go off a sidewalk and like plummet to my death. And I didn't know how to operate that thing. But on the first day of pre-K, actually, I went in the classroom and accidentally like ran over a kid's foot, and they started crying, and I was like mortified because it was like the first day of school ever, and I'm already running over a kid. So it took
Oh,
like a while to get used to it, but now I'm a pro at it.
you are a pro, that is for sure. So growing up with SMA, growing up in like grade school, high school, like what were some of the challenges that you faced that were difficult?
Yeah, I mean, in school, the big difficulty I think was getting the administrators to realize, that just because I had a disability and I used a wheelchair to get around, I didn't need, I mean, I needed to be still in mainstream classes. So I didn't need to be in like special education classes. And every single year growing up in school, that was a constant fight that my mom and I had to really
Mhm.
advocate for at the end of every school year. So they would constantly, the school system would try to like get me in special education for various reasons. They
Mm.
got more funding if they did that, and didn't have to pay like a one-on-one caregiver to or a parapro to be with me. And so there were several issues that went into that. But I remember just like from an early age, I really had to learn how to be an advocate and to advocate for what I wanted and what I knew that I really needed in order to succeed.
Did you grow up in a smaller town or a larger city?
Yeah, very small. So like
Okay.
10,000 people. So like very, very small.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you the only child in the school system that had a power wheelchair, for instance?
I was the only one that I knew of that was not in
Mm.
special education classes. So the only one that was in like mainstream classes that used a powered wheelchair. So it
Wow,
was
that
really,
is
I guess, like the
sure
first.
hard.
Yeah, I guess it was less just the first time that the school system had really dealt with that issue, maybe. So maybe that's why it was such a hassle. I don't know, but yeah, hopefully it's changed for the better by now.
Oh, hope so. So, what year did you graduate high school?
In 2008, so that's like a long time ago. Now it seems like it feels like yesterday, but it's been a while now.
Oh, think of how much has happened in your life since then, for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
So then, you went to college and talk a little bit about how college worked and the challenges of college.
Yeah, so I immediately after graduating high school, I knew that I wanted to move away
Mhm.
and get kind of like as far away as I could just to experience something different. And so I went
Yeah.
to George Washington University in Washington D.C. and wanted to major in international affairs. So I thought that I wanted to do something like in politics. I wasn't really sure what I would do, but I wanted to try that out. And now I ran as far away from that as I could. So now I'm in travel, which is much, much better and a lot better. But yeah, moving to college, I mean, it was definitely a struggle trying to find
Mhm.
caregivers that, would be there for me and get me up every morning and put me to bed every night and get me dressed and to and from classes or get my books out or, whatever I
Mhm.
needed throughout college. And so that was, I mean, tremendously challenging. But we ended up finding a school friend that I'd actually gone to school with since kindergarten. And she moved to DC with me to be my caregiver full time. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it was really all worked out, but it took a lot of planning. And we really had to start planning for that far in advance, like years in advance, just to start getting prepared, even though I didn't fully know where I was going to go to
Mhm.
college yet or be accepted to. We still had to begin planning. So, I mean, if anyone's watching, I would say, like, just start planning as early as possible, get a game plan in place, and then advocate for your needs with the school also. So even in college, I mean, talk to the disability office. They can do a lot, or vocational rehabilitation can help pay caregivers as well. They paid for mine, so that was a really good resource also.
Hmm. Your mom had to be terrified sending you to Washington, D.C. with caregivers that she was like, "How is this even gonna work?" I'm sure
Oh yeah.
she probably got some gray hairs over that one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, she always tells me that she like never let her phone leave her side throughout that time. So she hung onto that phone every single minute of every day.
So then you graduated and start hunting for a job, and then what happened?
Yeah, so I graduated with a degree in marketing. And
Mhm.
that was yeah, so I graduated with a degree in marketing. And then I started, filling out applications, trying to find a job, and couldn't really, like, not getting any responses really. But finally, one day, I got a call from a company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it was an advertising firm. And they said that if I could fly up to Pittsburgh the next day, that they would give me an interview and they were interested. So I was like ecstatic that I finally had an opportunity. And I flew to Pittsburgh
Mhm.
the next day. And when I rolled into the hiring manager's office, the first words out of his mouth, he said, "Well, this job involves traveling, so you're definitely not the best fit." And he like shut me down before I was even like given the interview or
Wow.
given a chance at all. And so in that moment, I was like really dismayed and didn't know what the future held. I mean, I
Mhm.
remember like crying on the flight home because I thought, I've spent these years in college trying to get this degree. And then now, is anybody even going to give me a chance? Are they going to be able to see past my disability? And I didn't know if that would be possible. But around that same time, I was also researching for a trip to Australia and got online and noticed that there wasn't really any website devoted to wheelchair accessible travel. There were a couple out there, but they mostly focused on travel in the US, and there just weren't very many resources. And so I thought, if I
Mhm.
could start a website, a blog, and show others, how my travels have gone so far. I really was not well traveled at all at that point and had only been to a few other countries. But I wanted to just really get information out there and make the process easier. And then luckily, it started gaining attention, and I've been doing it ever since.
So what year was that when you started your first blog?
I started the blog and launched it in December of 2013.
Okay.
So it's been
Amazing. Where like
almost 11 years.
I wish that you could find that hiring manager and say, "You said that it wasn't a good fit because it involved travel, and
I
look at my
know.
life now."
Yeah, I know.
Like,
That would be
literally.
amazing. I
Yeah,
wish I could
and,
too.
it's the
I do
kinda
too.
thing like oh, absolutely. If you, listen to that person that said, "No, this isn't for you," and you really believed it,
Yeah.
I mean, where would your life be? Like, your whole life
Right.
and your passion and the passion that you give others, so it's not just you, it's like there's a rippling effect from Cory Lee that has affected so many people in positive ways. So, it's amazing that I know that for sure some of it came from your mom is where she was such
Yeah.
a driver and encourager of you your whole life, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, really pushed me to just advocate for my needs from an early age. And
Yeah.
she also loved traveling. But I mean, we really didn't do a lot of traveling when I was younger. We would travel in the US and just take like road trips to Florida or to Washington,
Mhm.
D.C. or New York City, just places mostly along the East Coast that we could drive to from Georgia. So but those trips, I mean, really were the beginnings of my travels and made me realize, well, if it can be this fun to kind of, go to New York, what would like Europe be like, or Australia, or a safari in Africa, or anywhere else around the world? So those trips definitely motivated me to explore further.
So what was your first big trip?
Like internationally, um,
Mhm.
I guess I mean, I went to the Bahamas when I was 15, and that
Mhm.
was a trip where it was really the first time that I got to experience a different culture and like try new foods, like conch fritters and all that yummy stuff. Um, but then that trip, I mean, was amazing. But then when I turned 18, I went to Europe for the first time. I went to Germany and Austria. And I had studied German in high school and was like so excited to go to Germany, I remember. And that was the trip where I like fell head over heels in love with traveling and with Europe in particular. So I would really credit Germany to a lot of my passion for traveling.
So do you still speak German?
A little bit. I've definitely lost a lot of it.
Yeah, most people do afterwards,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So, okay, let's talk a bunch then now about travel for a bit. So tell us the top 3 accessible travel destinations in, overseas for you.
Okay. Top three.
And it
I
doesn't have
mean,
to be your favorite, just top
okay.
3 most accessible, not
Okay.
your
Yeah.
favorite necessarily.
Yeah. My most accessibles are probably not my favorite, actually. So I do
Yeah.
love all three of these, though, but I would definitely say Australia, Sydney, Australia in particular. I love Sydney, has fully accessible transportation. I mean, everywhere that I went in Sydney was phenomenally accessible, so I loved it. And then I would say Barcelona, Spain is an amazing destination. It's my favorite place in the world for food. I love Spanish
Oh,
food,
yes.
and the beaches in Barcelona are amazingly accessible. And then number three, I'm trying to think. I would say maybe London. I really love London because of the fact that every black cab in London has a fold out ramp. So all of the black cabs are accessible. You can easily just like hail a cab just like anyone else on the street. And it is a really easy process. So I love London for that reason.
I've only been to London one time, but I thought that was the coolest thing that those black cabs are
Yeah, yeah.
accessible. It's like, this is amazing. Why can't all cabs be like
I
this?
know. Yeah, I wish they were.
Oh, absolutely. And I do agree with you, Barcelona, like it's such nice flat city, and then obviously the food is definitely
Oh yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely.
I I came back from Spain. We've been to Spain a couple times. Every time I come back, I'm like, okay, now I'm only going to cook Spanish food for a while because I just love it so much. I got one of these huge big paella pans.
Ah,
So I have
nice.
this outdoor paella stand. You should come over sometime. I'll make you paella, and
Okay,
it's
okay.
so fun. I feel very Spanish when I do it.
You've convinced me. I'm definitely going to be coming over. So, yeah, you let me know the day, I'll be there.
Yes. Okay, fabulous. So, where did you visit that was the biggest surprise for acceptance and accessibility?
The biggest surprise. Immediately Helsinki comes to mind just because I
Mm.
did not necessarily think that Helsinki, Finland would be so accessible. And then when I got there, I found out that Helsinki actually has over 300 wheelchair accessible taxis, and every
Oh
mode
my
of
gosh.
transportation, yeah, I know, and every single mode of transportation in Helsinki is
Yeah.
completely accessible. So I was able to ride the ferry to go to the sea fortress. I was able to ride the buses, the tram, the taxis, and Helsinki is really ahead of the game. So even I was there the first time that I went to Helsinki was in January actually. So there was a lot of snow, but even the sidewalks are heated. So the snow like melts. So I
Oh
could
my
still
goodness.
easily get around, which I was just like amazed by.
That wasn't even on my list of like my radar of places to go,
Oh, really? Yeah,
but
Helsinki,
now it
I've been
is.
there. I've been
Yeah.
there a couple times now, and every time that I'm there, it just like blows my mind, and I really love it. And even found a wheelchair accessible sauna that I was able to go in and
Ooh.
like have an authentic
Yeah.
Finnish sauna experience. And yeah, Helsinki's amazing.
And I'm sure you loved it after being in the snow for a long time and then going in the
Oh
sauna
yeah,
and warming up. You were like, "Ooh, this is my favorite."
definitely. I stayed in there
Okay.
way too long.
You about melted. So, what's the most frustrating barrier that you've encountered while traveling?
The most frustrating. I mean, I guess the most frustrating barrier was probably in Paris. I mean, I hate to say it because I know everybody loves Paris and like the Paralympics were just there and it's such a good city. And I've heard that it's gotten a lot better, but when I visited back in 2011, it was tremendously difficult to get around the city. So we could only find one accessible taxi and for a full day of using it, it was like 800 euros. So it was like really expensive and just like that was the only option though. I couldn't ride the train or the metro. It wasn't accessible. So we had to get that taxi for that one day that we were there. And so it was just like
Mhm.
prohibitively expensive. And I've heard that it's improved a lot and there are now many, many more accessible taxi options. So I would love to go back to Paris and re experience it and hopefully it would be a lot better.
Yeah, I really hope that the Paralympics bring something to them also as far as their
Yeah.
attitudes towards disability. Because so we went there, and again, it's been a long time for us too. It's probably been 15 years since we were in Paris. But the things that happened to us is we were at a bar one night with Parisians, and they came up to Bert and said, You have to go. Actually, they came to me and said,
Oh,
He has to go. I'm like, well, number one, you better talk to him about this, not to me.
right.
But they went and talked to him and they said, You have to go. You're a fire hazard here. And
Oh,
he
wow.
said, No, I'm not. It was like we had to get up one stair.
Yeah.
And we had people that were with us that were Parisian that got him up the one
Mm,
stair. And they said, No, you have to go. You're a fire hazard. And because they don't have any like ADA laws at the time they didn't there,
right.
that we didn't have any recourse. It was like, well, I guess we gotta go. And I mean, Bert, he's not going down without a fight. So
Right,
there was some
right.
heated words.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can imagine.
I can imagine.
And but we had to leave. And it was just like the attitudes of the Parisians and
Yeah.
the accessibility, like it's been 15 years and we haven't gone back.
Yeah, and I experienced the same thing, like with the attitudes as well in regards to
Mhm.
transportation. And we also had another issue that happened in Paris where my mom was pickpocketed and they stole all of our cash and her wallet, my wallet, everything. And so we tried to report it and had like zero help from the police there. So it was just really an overall bad
Mhm.
experience, but I would still like totally go back tomorrow and like try it out again. So I don't want to say that it's bad and like scare anyone off, but hopefully it's improved.
Yeah, I would think after Paris, because I heard we had a guest on who is a Paralympic athlete, and he said that actually the Paralympics are sold out.
Oh,
So
wow.
I love that the Parisians are supporting the Paralympics in such a big way of,
Yeah.
everything being sold out. So I love
Oh,
seeing
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Um, yeah. So, different cultures perceive disability very differently.
Mhm.
And you would think that in more of a Western culture like Paris, and there are like we went to Nice, and Nice was great, but you would think like in a culture that is very Western that they would have better perceptions. What has your been experience in being in more cultures that aren't as Western? How do they perceive disability?
Yeah, when I was in India a few years ago, it was actually in 2018, late 2018 when I
Hmm.
went to India, and it was a destination that I'd always wanted to visit, and it was in my top two travel experiences of all time, like one of my favorite trips ever. But every single time that I would get out of the van and roll down the ramp out of our van, uh, people would gather around me and just start like looking and taking photos and pointing at me and
Hmm.
it was a really bizarre experience for the first few days because I was like, why are they doing this? Like, I'm just getting out of the van. Why are there literally 100 people swarming me to watch me get out of this
Yeah.
van and take photos? And but then after a few days, one of them came up to me and he was like, "How much did your wheelchair cost? And where did you get it?" And I was like
Mm.
talking to him about that, and he started just crying and he told me that in India, like they
Wow.
don't have power wheelchairs that are available. Like that's not even an option for them. And that his brother needed a wheelchair, but he couldn't even leave the house because they don't have the technology that he needs in order to leave the house. And so it just gave me like kind of a whole new perspective on how like
Mhm.
fortunate I am to be able, to leave my house, to travel the world, and to use a powered wheelchair when there are people that can't even get out of their house because that isn't an option for them in their country. So I think that experience, it really taught me a lot and made me a lot more grateful to have the abilities that I do have.
Absolutely. I think in India, my sister lived there for several years, and so I went to India also.
Nice.
And it's that kind of, I guess, dichotomy of here there are these. It's so industrial, and it's the call centers all in India, like all this kind of thing that we're using India for, but really their infrastructure for supporting people with disabilities, it's really limited still.
Oh yeah.
And the ability for people to have access to even simple things like manual wheelchairs and good health care. So it's you understand then why they're taking all those pictures.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And after that experience where he told me all of that, I just like assumed that, when they came over, they were just curious because they had never seen a powered
Yeah.
wheelchair before, and so it's just like curiosity. And I was happy to like talk with them after that and, talk to them about having a disability or what all the wheelchair can do. I was like reclining back and like elevating it, and they were
Yeah.
like completely amazed. So it was really one of the best trips of all time.
Wow. It's interesting how some people would look at that and go, "No, I hated it because I got stared at and pointed at, and you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I didn't just blend in." But you still say it was one of your best trips. Why was it one of your best trips?
Yeah, it really, India is so beautiful. Like, we were able to go to the Taj Mahal, we went to Jaipur, we did Delhi, so the whole Golden Triangle in northern India. And the
Yeah.
beauty is unbelievable. And all of the hotels that we stayed in were really remarkable and super accessible, which was kind of surprising that the hotels were so accessible. And then, I never saw a wheelchair user in India other than myself. So,
Mhm.
but the hotels were really great, and the tour company that we went with there was fantastic as well. So, it was just such a positive experience, and that trip really, I think, changed like my mindset in a lot of ways and made me more grateful, like I said, for the abilities that I do have. So. I will forever love that trip and would love to go back and see more of the country. I think
Mhm.
there is still so much more of India that I need to see.
Absolutely. It's a big country.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
Absolutely. So, okay, you said that India was in your top 2. What is your number 1 favorite destination of all times? And I know that's a
Um,
hard question.
I would say
Mm.
number one is Morocco. I did my first ever curb-free group trip in Morocco, actually. And so it was
Mhm.
the first time that I was able to travel with other people that had a disability and be able to have that experience of traveling with them and be able to learn from each other and share those experiences with other disabled people. And so for that reason, I really, really love Morocco. But it's also a beautiful country, and I was even able to go out into the Sahara Desert and ride a camel for the first time. So, the company there invented an adaptive camel seat, and so it was basically like a seat on top of the camel
Wow.
with a
Yeah.
backrest and a cushion, so it was more comfortable. And riding across the Sahara, like, on a camel was something that I honestly just thought would never be possible for me with my disability, and then to be able to do that and like have that experience was like, surpassed every expectation that I had and like all of my wildest dreams. So I absolutely love Morocco, and it's, I would say, definitely my favorite.
That literally almost makes me cry thinking about that of, what you thought life would be like for travel, and then you are
Yeah,
doing something that is so adventurous and so big that most people would never even get to do, and you're doing it with
yeah,
a significant disability, and that they thought ahead.
yeah, yeah.
That they weren't like, "How are we gonna do this?" No, they'd already thought ahead and, "Okay, we need a backrest." How
Oh
did you
yeah.
do it for lateral support so you didn't just, like, fall off the
Yeah,
chair?
I was definitely worried about that, but we used double-sided Velcro straps, and just wrapped it around me. Like, so I was completely like strapped to that backrest and that seat on top of the camel. And then they also had one person on each side of me as the camel was walking, like in the desert. The person was on each side of me just in case I started like falling to the right. They would like kind of push me
Yeah.
back over, But we luckily like didn't really need them throughout that walk with the camel, but they were there just in case, which made me feel more assured that I would survive it. But it was yeah, just amazing.
Dang. Is that your most adventurous thing that you've done?
I mean, I don't think it's my most adventurous necessarily. I would probably say paragliding was one of my most adventurous.
Mhm.
So I went paragliding in Switzerland last year, and that was another experience that I honestly doubted I would ever be able to do. And then I discovered that they had an adapted seat that they could put you in, and so it was like just a regular seat that I went in, like a chair, and then the guy rode behind me like it was a tandem flight. And so I was able to be
Yeah.
in that specialized chair, and he was attached to the chair, and we went paragliding through the Swiss Alps, which was unbelievable. And like it
Gosh.
sounds crazy that I'm even saying that I went paragliding through the Swiss Alps. Like, what is my life? But it was like really one of the
It's
most remarkable
amazing.
experiences ever.
That's one of the experiences that when you posted that, I looked it up and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Bert, this is 5-year bucket list."
Oh yeah.
Because, like, I mean, I wanna go paragliding through the Swiss Alps and that Bert could do it with me.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, you guys have got to plan that trip.
Man.
Like, Switzerland is one of the most accessible countries in the world, I think. Like, I should have maybe named it in my top three because it's super, super accessible. Like, I mean, we were able to go paragliding, the sidewalks are smooth, all of the transportation is accessible with the trains. I mean, I was able to do so much in that country within about 10 days, and I'm like already dying to go back. And I want to go paragliding again.
Mm. I Okay, I'll go with you. Maybe we need a
Okay,
group trip to Switzerland.
I would love it.
Like,
Let's do it.
that's a great idea. I'll sign up for that one too. So how do you plan and prepare for all of these trips? I know that, over the past few years, you're getting treated by a lot of people that say, "Hey, come see what we have."
Yeah.
But in general, how, even before you were Cory Lee, how did you plan for this and what makes it easier for you to plan?
I usually start planning pretty far in advance. So anywhere between like 6 to 12 months in advance of a trip, or longer even. I mean, just to give me more time to
Wow.
kind of nail down all of those accessibility details. So finding an accessible hotel and finding accessible transportation or communicating with the tour company, like everything that goes into traveling as a wheelchair user, like as you know, Joy, it takes a lot of work and a lot of
Mhm.
time if you're planning a trip on your own without like a company doing it like Will the World does. So
Yeah.
I mean, I would recommend just like doing it as far in advance as possible, just to give you more time to really iron out the details.
Yeah, and I think also because there's not as many wheelchair accessible, hotel rooms, and so that's what I've found too is that if you start planning your trip ahead of time, that's going to give you a lot more options when it comes to hotels for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and especially also cruises. I mean, as you may know, like cruises
Mm,
don't have a ton of accessible rooms. So if you are wanting to go on like a Mediterranean cruise or an Alaskan cruise or a Caribbean or whatever cruise it is, like really plan that out even further than a year in advance if possible, just to ensure that you do get those accessible rooms that you need.
absolutely. We planned a cruise 6 months in advance, so I'm like, oh, that seems like a good amount of time.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a wheelchair accessible room, and I'm like,
Ah,
"Oh, someone will drop out, it's gonna be fine."
yeah.
Nobody ever did. We literally
Ah,
had to step up to get into the bathroom, but
wow.
I knew that was gonna happen, but I really wanted to go on this cruise to Norway and Switzerland, I mean, I'm sorry, Norway and Scotland,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I was like, "Okay, we're just gonna make it work. I'll help you get up the step, it's fine."
Yeah.
So sometimes you just go in the lack of accessibility room, the inaccessible room,
Right, right.
just because we didn't. I mean, I thought 6 months would be plenty of time, so I
Yeah, yeah.
agree with you, like, those cruise ships maybe even a year in advance to get the rooms you really want.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when I planned the Antarctica cruise, we went to Antarctica in early 2020, and I
Mm.
actually planned that about 2 years in advance, and was able to get a wheelchair accessible room just like I needed. It was phenomenally accessible. So, but that was about 2 years of planning in advance to get that room.
Was that your last continent for travel? Was that
Yeah,
your
that
number 7?
yeah, it was number 7. Yep,
Yeah, I figured so.
yep.
Uh, and that had to also just be a pinch me moment when you're seeing the massive glaciers and just going, "Oh my gosh,
Oh yeah.
I am in the waters of Antarctica."
Oh yeah, when I saw that well, like a well literally breached and jumped up out of the water as soon as we entered Antarctica. And I just like started crying and like could not even believe like what I was
Yes.
seeing. Like it was incredible. Like so much better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, people, because we went to Antarctica in January. Bert did not go, but my children and I went, and people always say, "Is it your best trip?" And I'm like, "You can't compare it to other trips."
Right,
It's
right.
kind of like that's Mars, and you
Right.
can't compare it because it's just so otherworldly than here, and it just
Yep.
takes so long to get there. So I don't even put it on my list of best ever because it's too hard to say that, you know?
Right, I did the same thing. Like people are always kind of shocked when I say that Morocco is my favorite and not Antarctica. But I'm
Yeah.
like, Antarctica is just like a completely different thing. Like it doesn't even
Yeah.
feel like a travel experience on its own. Like it is like going to another planet, like you're saying. Like it's its own thing. Like it's in a special category for me.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it is very special. I felt very lucky to have gotten to be there when I was there, that
Oh
kinda
yeah.
just wow, soak it all in. So what do you think is like the essential necessary mindset to have this idea of traveling so extensively as you have? Because not everybody could do this because not every situation goes perfect for you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things go wrong when I'm traveling, but I always say, if you're going to
Mm.
be disabled, you got to be creative. Like that's the number one thing for me is when something does go wrong, we've got to be willing to just sit back and like not freak out and figure out a solution and something
Mhm.
that will work to remedy the situation. So I think that's, the most important thing that you can really do as a traveler with this with the disability is to just know, like before you even go on the trip, that most likely things are not going to be perfect. But when the bad thing does happen, just stay calm, cool, and collected, and then to like figure out a solution. I mean, for every problem, there is a solution, and you can get through it.
Yeah. You stay so calm. Like we had an incident on an
Yeah.
airplane with Corey where his chair wasn't coming up, and my husband was off, and Corey's wasn't, and my husband lost his mind. and and Corey just stays so calm and doesn't lose his head, guys. Like it's really incredible. I think that's your superpower is you stay very calm under pressure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really just know that, like, in the end, like, everything's gonna be okay. Like, this time next week, I'm gonna be at home just chilling. Like, it'll all be fine in the end. But, like, in the moment, it can be overwhelming and it feels like a lot. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, in that situation, I mean, that was a lot. And I mean, I was definitely like nervous and like aggravated with the airline and worried, about getting my wheelchair back and everything. But I mean, I know that in the end it's going to work out.
Man, it's a really good quality to have. I think for someone that travels so extensively, you have to have that quality.
Yeah.
Be patient, keep a level head, and at the end of the day, be like, okay, and keep going. Like
Oh yeah.
this sucks, but you just keep going, and then you're able to see the bright side of every situation, which I really think that's amazing. And after traveling with you and seeing, we had a lot of stuff go wrong that trip, but to not let that overshadow the great experience you're having with being with awesome people or seeing new adventures,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Oh
loved
yeah,
it.
absolutely. Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. So you started as a blog And now you are like a blog, you're social media king, like you have a lot going on with that. And you have a very loyal following. So, how has social media played a role in this travel journey of yours?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the greatest thing about social media is that it enables me to be able to interact with other people with disabilities like in real time.
Mhm.
So when I post something and people can comment immediately and let me know their thoughts. Like a couple days ago, I posted a post on Facebook and told everyone to leave links to different accessible cabins in the caption. And so, like, over 100 people weighed in with accessible cabin recommendations all around
Wow.
the country. And so, just being able to have that community and those resources like is really invaluable. I mean, I have a very like devoted and loyal following, and like we
Yeah.
constantly help each other out. Like if I need to know about accessibility in a destination, I can just like hop on Instagram and post in my stories, and somebody will like weigh in with their recommendations or their input. And then, if they need recommendations, they can message me anytime and I'll like give my recommendations. But social media is really
Mhm.
just a phenomenal way to get to know one another, but to also really learn more about traveling and interact.
Yeah. So you're really authentic on your platforms. And that's something
Thanks.
I also really respect about you is you don't make sure that every picture is, you looking straight on the camera, looking great
Yeah,
in your outfits and, with your Gucci shoes. You know,
yeah.
you the thing couple ones I want to bring up. One is when you posted our time at the spa in Chile, the outdoor um what do you call that?
Like a hot
Not the
spring.
spa, it's a hot springs,
Well,
hot springs.
yeah,
Yes, we were at the outdoor hot springs, and at first Bert looked at it and he's like, "I'm not getting in. You can get in." And then you got in, and then Bert's like, "Okay, I'll get in." And part of it I know was seeing like you got in. And then
yeah,
so he got in, we had this great day, and you posted the picture, and it was a picture of you being supported with noodles.
right.
And you even commented, like, "I wasn't sure if I was gonna post this." What's your thoughts
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I really just want to be as vulnerable as possible, like on social media, on my blog, in real life. I mean, with a disability, like nothing is going to be picture perfect. Like, I'm not ever going to be the influencer that's posting themselves on the beach, just like happily posing with like a margarita or like, whatever. Like, that just isn't how life is for someone with a disability. Like, there's a lot that goes into getting me in that hot spring. Like it took, people being willing to carry me into the water. And then
Mhm.
once I'm in the water, being willing to support me and stay with me and making sure I didn't, like drown in the hot spring. Like that takes effort
Little
by,
details.
right, right. But that
Yeah.
takes a lot of effort and a lot of planning. And so, I mean, if anybody that has a disability like mine is going to that hot spring, I really just want them to know, like, you can do it, but it does take some work, and this is what you're going to have to do. So I don't want people to just think, oh, traveling's perfect. Like it's so easy for Corey. Like it's far from easy, but it's always worth it.
Absolutely. The other thing that I saw that you posted with is in relation to flying, and you, got a box of Depends, and you're like, "Well,
Yeah.
until I have an accessible bathroom, I need to make sure that I'm not gonna crap myself on the plane."
Right.
And I think that's, like, it's real.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really debated posting that because I mean, I know flying is like the most daunting thing in the world as a wheelchair user or someone with a disability. And so I thought, is that going to like deter people from flying? Is it, like what's the reaction going to be? But I thought, what, this is what I
Yeah,
have to do. Like I literally had to go to the store that day and buy those like adult briefs, and that's just something
yeah.
that I had to do to be able to fly the next day. And so that's why I ultimately decided to post that and wanted to share that experience, because I hope that, other people like don't feel shame when they're having to do the same thing. But I
Mhm.
also hope that that brought some kind of awareness to flying with a disability. And hopefully the airlines saw it and they're like, hey, like we could do better maybe. Like this shouldn't be the reality in 2024.
Absolutely. No, I respected that so much because I do think that people can cherry pick our lives
Yeah,
and they just see the beautiful shots of us on vacations, but then they don't see the other side. And I
right.
respected that so much because I know for some people, they maybe never even thought about that. Of okay, maybe I have that as my backup, so I feel more confident.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, I my husband Bert was our first guest on Travel Talk with Joy, and he shared, when with his colostomy, when his colostomy leaked at the poker table, and he was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"I had this massive pile of chips in front of me. What am I going to do?" And
Right.
he stayed at the table. But I think that's the real part of disability that people don't always see.
Oh yeah,
They might see, oh, use a wheelchair, and don't think about all the bowel and bladder crap that goes along with
right.
using a wheelchair.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
uh,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I received
Bert
comments.
has said before.
Yeah, I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, I mean, I receive comments like all the time from like mostly able-bodied people that are like, well, it must be nice to be rich and travel, but like I'm so far
Yeah.
from rich. Like, number one, that's inaccurate. And then just
Yeah.
to assume that, I'm just like freely traveling and like not a lot of work goes into it, like, it's far from the truth. So I want to really like debunk that myth and just show like the realities of traveling.
Absolutely. We were on a trip recently, and Bert's wheelchair just literally conked out. And we were in
Oh.
downtown Nashville. We'd taken a bus to get from the hotel to downtown Nashville. Like, it was terrible. But yeah, and so I'm pushing him. I'm in a cute dress and boots, and I'm pushing him through
Yeah.
the streets of Nashville to get onto the bus, to get to the hotel. Like, it was a whole thing. But at the end of the day, did that ruin our trip to Nashville? No.
Right.
We figured
Yeah,
it
right.
out and you keep going, but people don't always see those hard parts. So I think it's
Yeah.
good when we can share the hard parts so people understand, you know,
Oh
it's
yeah.
not always easy. And also they look at someone in a wheelchair and say, "Oh, they can't walk." There's probably 10 other things my husband would pick of getting, function back before walking.
Right, right.
That's
Oh yeah. Me
an
too.
easy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I I respect you for that for sure.
Well, thank you.
Um, what message do you hope to convey to your followers through all these travel experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I really just want to convey to them that, traveling is completely possible, I think, for most people with
Mhm.
disabilities. I won't say all, but for most people with disabilities, I think, if you're willing to be creative and find a way to make it happen, and you're willing to just like really embrace every aspect of traveling, even the hard parts, which, we've talked a lot about today, but if you're willing to
Yeah,
go through that, like it is going to be worth it. And every time I get on a plane, like I can't go to the bathroom on a flight. I'm constantly worried if my wheelchair is going to be damaged on a flight. But I really
yeah,
try to sit there and think about what's waiting for me on the other end of that journey. So how
mm,
amazing is the destination going to be, and what's it going to be like once I actually get there? And that really gets me through the hard parts of flying and traveling. And so if you're willing to like fully embrace it, like it will totally be worth it for you, I think.
absolutely. And, I think just because someone has a disability, like, it doesn't take away that desire for adventure and
Oh
travel.
yeah.
And I feel like if you do like push that down, then you feel like a little lacking in life, like
Yeah.
if my husband and I for our marriage, if we didn't have the ability to do adventure and travel, it would put some strain there of feeling like, oh, I wish we could have, I wish we
Oh yeah.
could. And I'm very grateful that Bert's always up for saying, sure,
Yeah, yeah.
let's try it, let's do it, let's try it, let's do it, and doesn't get down by what could or does go wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And don't you feel like
Let's talk about your
travel yeah, I was just gonna say, and
go.
don't you feel like travel, like in a way, it forces you to like push out of your comfort zone? And that's like one of my favorite things
Oh,
about traveling is like I do things when we're traveling that I would never do at home. Like I would never go ziplining or paragliding or like snow skiing or like any of that at home. But when I'm traveling, it's like I'm my full self and like living as like the best version of myself, I guess. So yeah, that's like really why I love traveling.
Oh, I love that. You know, when you say like the best version of yourself. And I feel like when you're in your zone of you
Yeah.
doing your travel thing, it's like you were living your most authentic version, the person that you would be, whether you were in a wheelchair or not in a wheelchair.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think about the wheelchair or the fact that, I use a wheelchair when I'm traveling.
Yeah.
I'm really just focused on the experiences that I'm having. And so I think travel also like allows me to kind of like step outside of having a disability and like really just like be my authentic self and have those like really amazing experiences that, are available to me. Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so, okay, one thing I want to talk about that not everyone knows that you have a nonprofit,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we
and
started
I
it.
want you to, yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, we started the Curb Free Foundation a couple years ago, and through the nonprofit, we provide travel grants to wheelchair users. So wheelchair users can simply go to the curbfreefoundation.com and fill out an application and apply for their dream trip to be fully sponsored. So we've been able to reward some pretty incredible trips to people. We just sent someone to Morocco. It was her dream trip, and she had an amazing experience, rode a camel in the Sahara just like I did, with the same adaptive camel saddle. That was her like lifelong dream to go there. And she went this past May. So it was really amazing to see those photos and videos. But we've also sent people to like Disney World. We sent one to Nashville, sent one on a Caribbean cruise. So it's been really rewarding just to be able to do that and like give back
Yeah.
to the community that has like given me like so much over the past like 10 plus years of traveling. And yeah, the Curb Free Foundation is by far my favorite thing that I've ever done.
I saw that one of the recipients, he was, I think, maybe an 82-year-old man that
Yeah,
had
yeah.
never been to the beach, never seen the ocean.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was from Georgia, and had never been to the beach, and it's only about 5 hours away. And he had never been in his entire life, and so his caregiver was able to go with him, and they actually took him out of the nursing home for those 5 days where they were able to go to the beach, and he was able to experience the ocean for the first time and like get a beach wheelchair and go in the water and yeah, just like seeing that. I mean, I was like bawling like a baby when I saw those like photos and videos. It was
I was
amazing.
too.
Yeah, okay, okay.
I loved it. I loved it so much because, you know, could he have lived the rest of his life without seeing the beach? Yes.
Yeah,
But it's like the memory that you gave him that
yeah.
lasted for, he still has that treasure in his mind. And
Oh yeah.
I just think that's the most incredible thing that you could give someone is experiences.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I completely agree. Like even for like holidays, like Christmas and everything, I try to like gift experiences, like instead of like material items. And
Yeah.
I'm such a fan of that. And like to do that with the Care Free Foundation is like tenfold. Like it's just the most amazing thing when we can like Zoom with somebody and tell them that they are finally going on their dream trip and that the foundation is covering like all of the expenses. Like there is no better feeling in the world than doing that.
I had the privilege of telling a recipient of a Wheel the World trip to a fully expense paid trip for two to South Africa,
Oh,
call him
nice.
and tell him that you're going to South Africa fully paid. And it was so incredible to be able to do that. And the idea that this man that specifically, it was he had never been to Africa, and he and his wife had planned to do it,
Yeah.
but then he got sick, and he ended up losing all of his limbs.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's going to be going there on the 5-year anniversary of his limb loss.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
this like full circle moment. And you talk about crying. Like
Yeah.
he's telling me this when I call him and say, "You won." And he's like, "Well, here's what happened to me 5 years ago."
Right, right.
So I think it's so cool that you do that.
That's amazing.
So you're one
That's
of the
so
only
cool.
influencers that do that, but you're also one of the only influencers that hosts group trips. So let's talk a little more about group trips. This
Yeah.
is the way that Cory and I met each other. And now I've been on 2 group trips with Wheel the World. And I just didn't think I'd want to travel with that many people with wheelchairs. And then we did it. And every time it's like we learn about people that are different than us, and we get to hang out with families and be around other spouses that support someone with a disability. And it's been really incredible. Talk a little bit about your group trip specifically. And I think you have a couple spots on your Mexico group trip still.
Yeah, yeah. So I started the Curb Free group trips back in 2018, and so far we have
Mhm.
done one every year, with the exception of 2020 for obvious reasons. But we have gone to
Mhm.
Morocco, we did Iceland, Costa Rica, Patagonia, Barcelona, Greece. Ugh, I feel like I'm forgetting one, maybe not. I don't know, but and then
Rome, Rome, your
oh
latest
yeah,
one.
well we're doing it next year. So next summer we
Okay.
are going to Italy, and we're going to be doing Rome and Florence, and that's in collaboration with Will the World. And so I am so excited for that trip. Italy is one of my favorite places in the world, also. And then later this year we're doing Mexico, so we're going to be doing Riviera Maya
Ah,
and doing like Cancun and going to Chichen Itza, which is a world wonder and somewhere that I've never been actually. So I am so excited to
wow.
have those,
Okay.
yeah, those like first time experiences with other wheelchair users and just to be able to experience that. And so that one is also in collaboration with Will the World. And we do have a couple spots remaining on, I think, the November trip. So the one going
Okay.
out this November. So if anybody is interested in joining, definitely like reach out or go to willtheworld.com and definitely like sign up. It's going to be a really amazing trip.
Mm. I think that it's such a unique opportunity to hang out with other people with disabilities because a lot of times, like you said,
Yeah.
you don't really have friends in your community that have disabilities, and just the support that people experience in that trip is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, my favorite part of the group trips is just being able to be with other people with disabilities and share those experiences.
Mm.
But then also, if something does go wrong on the trip, like we're all there for each other.
Yeah.
We can, quickly remedy the situation almost every single time and do that together because we all know what it's like to travel and live with a disability. So
Uh,
just being around others with a disability is amazing. Like it's every single year my favorite trip that I do every year. It's amazing.
And I think that, you end up having connections that you didn't think you would have. So
Yep.
we were on an Iceland group trip last year, and 4 different people, 4 disabilities. And at the very end, they had a wrap up where, people talk about what was your favorite thing.
Right.
And there was one guy on the trip with his parents, and he wasn't real verbal. He had some multiple disabilities, but he and Bert just had this incredible bond because Bert's brother was a little like this guy. And at the end of the trip, when we all went around and shared what our favorite thing on the trip was, and people were like, "Oh, the Blue Lagoon, the
Yeah,
waterfalls,"
yeah.
and this guy, when they asked him what was your favorite thing, he just pointed to Bert and said, "Bert." And
Oh
I was
nice.
like, it was the sweetest, like, just truest moment from his heart. Um, but I love that because you just never know um, how you're impacting someone and how they're impacting you. And Bert loved it too. I mean, he just gave him a big old bear hug and was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I love you, man."
That's awesome.
I
That's so
I
good.
love the group trips.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So
I remember
highly
like
recommend checking on the group trips.
yeah, I mean, I remember like when we were in Patagonia, like at the end, we kind of did the same thing where we all went around and said
Yeah.
our favorite thing, and like almost everyone in the group was like meeting everyone else here on this trip. Like it's just so
Yeah.
incredible to travel with other people that truly get it and like that understand your life and like don't look at you like weird because you're eating a certain way or like whatever accommodations you need like or
Yeah.
being carried into the hot spring. Like nobody really thought anything of
Mhm.
it within our group because we know that you just have to do that. Like if you're going to get in the hot spring. So
Mhm.
it's really something that you just can't do any other way than going with a group.
I thought maybe your favorite moment on that trip was when I sang karaoke.
I did love that. I still have the video, I think, like in my phone. We should like
Oh, we
incorporate the
could share
video.
that.
We could incorporate that into this show.
Yes. No, I don't think so. And just so everyone knows, I got second place and I was kind of disappointed.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You should have been first, but it was rigged.
It was totally rigged. Well, maybe next time we can go karaoke again and I'll try harder.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go.
Maybe have one or two less margaritas. We'll see.
Right. Right.
Uh, so people are always like, oh, you're so inspiring, and it's not a bad thing to be an inspiration, but who inspires you?
Ah, I mean, I would say just my community that I have really like built up. I think,
Um,
the people that I see, leaving comments and sending me messages, like every time I hear from one of them that, they
mhm.
went to Iceland because they saw that I went to Iceland, or they went to
Yeah.
whatever destination because I had went there and provided that information to them. It just makes me feel like so good that I'm having some sort of an impact, and that they were able to have that experience because of the information that I'm providing. So it serves as
Mhm.
kind of like constant motivation for me to just like keep at it, keep publishing information, keep putting out the reels and TikToks and all the stuff on social media. And so, I mean, I think they are truly like definitely my biggest motivation and inspiration.
Okay, so, after talking, it sounds like, you just really just go for it and are always saying, okay, we just make best of whatever happens. But so many people out there really are just so nervous. So, my last questions for you is how can you encourage other people that are just so nervous about the idea of jumping on an airplane or, what kind of baby steps would you recommend they do?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to really just like think about it in advance of your trip and plan as far in advance as possible, just to give you more time to be able to plan everything out, but also really think about what accommodations you're going to need when it comes to flying. Like, what parts of your wheelchair can come off and be put into a carry on bag? Or are you going to be able to go to a bathroom on the plane? Can you easily be transferred into the onboard chair? Or should you have a backup plan like wearing adult briefs like I do? Or whatever kind of issues you could possibly need, even with the hotel. Like, I really, when I'm booking a hotel, try to think about, what accommodations do I have at home? So, how tall is my bed at home? And that's how tall I really need the bed to
Mhm.
be in a hotel. And then, how wide are my doorways? Like, I need the doorway in the hotel to be that wide, or on the cruise ship to be that wide. And so, just thinking about the accessibility accommodations that you do have at home, and then how can we replicate that when we're on a trip?
Yeah. I think that one thing that we really started doing the more my husband needed accessible travel, having a travel company that understands all those needs,
Oh
that
yeah,
was a huge thing for us of finding that because I think you were such a seasoned traveler, but I think as people first get into it, is really using a travel company that
yeah,
says, okay, what height bed do you want? What shower situation do you want to help you kind of process all those things and then make the planning for you. So you
yeah,
don't show up going, okay, how am I going to get from the airport to the hotel? Like all that type of stuff is planned for you. I think that is a really good pro tip for people that are brand new into traveling with a disability
yeah.
is use people that know it as their business.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, everything that you just said, I can relate to 100%. And I have
Mm,
really don't travel internationally anymore without working with a tour company to do that. And so the
mhm,
tour company, they're able to know what hotels are the most accessible in that destination. They've already scouted that out, like Will the World does. And then they provide the transportation to get around that's accessible. So when you do work
mhm.
with a tour company, it definitely eliminates a lot of the worries that you can have in advance of a trip. And it just makes the overall experience so much better and more stress free for you, for your companions that are going with you, because everything has already been mapped out and taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's been the biggest thing is to not have that travel stress anymore
Yeah.
and to just show up and it's done, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
wow, this is what travel is like for regular people. Is
Right.
they pay their money, they show up, and they have a
Right.
great time.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's nice to be on the end of I think this time of travel where that's able to happen for people now, you know?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on, Corey. I just,
Yeah, thank
as your
you.
friend, but also just as a fan, I feel that what you're doing is just opening doors to so many people, truly making people dream and go, wow, okay, if he can do that, I can do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I just can't wait till you come back from your next trip so I can see, okay, do I need to put that on my bucket list?
Yeah, and I can't wait to come over for
Yeah.
paella, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, I'm amazing with my paella. So I'm going to go ahead and I always end with kind of a popcorn round of questions because
Okay.
the masses out there want to know everything about Corey Lee.
I'm nervous.
Okay, we're gonna go through it. It's an easy one. It's an easy
Okay,
one.
okay.
And the first one you've already even done. So all time favorite country.
Morocco, without a doubt. I'll say it again. I'll say it every day, but yeah, I mean, Morocco is incredible.
I love it. Most important thing to remember when to bring when traveling.
To bring, I mean, your wheelchair charger, if
Mhm.
you use a powered wheelchair like I do, like
Yeah.
without that, I would be stuck in a foreign country or in any destination for that matter. So, yeah, definitely the wheelchair charger. And then I'm kind of addicted to my iPhone. So I would say the iPhone charger also. So like all of the chargers, just take all the chargers.
All the chargers. We have this massive bag of chargers when we travel for everything.
Oh yeah.
Favorite snack on a plane.
I gotta go with combos. Like, do you know the combos that are like the little
I
pretzel
do.
things, and they have like cheese inside of them? I
I do
only
know
eat I
those.
I only eat them if I'm on a plane. I never have eaten them at home. But if I'm on a plane, like that is just the thing that I crave and that I really, really want. So yeah, I'm gonna say combos.
And what's the best flavor? What's the best
I'm
flavor?
gonna go with the pretzel on the outside and then like the pizza inside. Like they don't smell the
Ooh.
greatest, but they are delicious.
I thought you were going to say Takis.
I do love those too, but I'm nervous about like spicy foods
Yes.
on a plane.
Mm, probably should be.
Yeah.
Okay, last book you read.
Let's fuck. I read Being Human by Judy Human pretty recently. So Judy Human is like was such an idol of mine, and after she passed
Mhm,
away, I finally made time to like read her book, and just hearing her
mhm.
story and like how much of an advocate she was and how she got started with advocacy was incredible. So yeah, I loved that book.
That's a great read. Okay, Beach or Mountain?
Definitely beach. I mean, I love mountains also. Like a cabin getaway is always fun, but something
Yeah,
about like being near the water, like on an accessible beach, just like brings me so much joy, and I'm always down for a beach getaway.
love it. Favorite music artist?
You know this one.
I know it.
Ta-
The
Taylor
Queen.
Swift, without a doubt. Yeah, I am a Swiftie 100%. Yeah, I love her. I'm currently like
Yes.
trying to figure out how to go to Eras tour when it's going to be in New Orleans later this year. But like, oh, I'm like trying to make it happen.
Well, if you find another ticket, I would love to go with you because I
Okay,
wanted to do
okay.
this too, and it's really hard to find the tickets, but like seriously.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I've been like looking at all the resale websites and like the
Mhm.
tickets are astronomical, but I'm like, it's Taylor, like it would be worth it. Like, I want to go so bad.
And the new album. The
I
new album,
know.
we get all the
Yes.
content from the new album.
Yeah. What's your favorite song
Maybe.
on the new
Uh, uh,
album?
oh, I don't know if I can say that. I've listened to it a ton, but
Oh.
I don't think I know the song titles yet enough. That's because I'm not
Oh,
as true of a
well.
fan as you are.
Right.
What is yours?
Currently, I'm addicted to the Black Dog. I really love it.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's my current
Mhm.
favorite, but it changes pretty much like every other day.
It's just good. I just don't know how she continues to do it. Uh, okay, most respected influencer,
Ah,
disabled or non-disabled?
oh, this is a hard one. There's so many that I really love, but the one that like
Hmm.
immediately comes to mind is Jessica Nabongo. I really love her. She does incredible work, and she was actually the first Black woman to visit every country in the world. So she's literally been to every
Oh
country in
my
the world,
gosh.
and her journey to do that was just really amazing to like witness on social media. And now she is still like doing amazing things, and she published a book with National Geographic like a year ago, and her book is amazing also. It's called The Catch Me If You Can. And so yeah, Jessica Nabongo is one of my favorite influencers, but yeah, I love her.
Okay, I'm gonna have to follow that. All-time favorite movie?
uh, I don't know. I mean, I really love The Breakfast Club. It's like if it's on, I always
Good
watch it.
choice.
I know pretty much every line from it, so I'll just go with that for now.
It's such a good movie. Okay, final question. Dream trip.
Uh, I'm gonna say Japan. I mean, Japan is pretty much number one for me, and I've been trying to go there since 2020. I had like everything booked to go in
Mm,
2020, then the pandemic happened, and then I had everything booked to go in 2021, and then Japan was still closed down due to the pandemic. So I'm
mhm.
finally going this October. So I'm like
Oh,
so excited for it, and I just cannot wait.
wow. Oh, I can't wait to hear your notes. I
Yeah.
interviewed a guy that was a Paralympic athlete that was there in actually 2021 for the 2020
Nice.
games.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said Japan was so accessible, everything was
Uh-huh.
accessible. And he said the attitudes towards disability, he's like, you're just a guy there. It's not
Nice.
like a big deal to be in a wheelchair. And I didn't expect that from Japan. Just the
Yeah, yeah.
level of accessibility that he said was there, and then also the attitudes of everyone. So I'm excited one day to go to Japan too. So I can't wait to see your notes and
Yeah.
get your pro tips.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely be posting all about it. So yeah, that's good to hear though that he had such a good experience.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. And to all y'all out there, make sure you follow Curb Free with Cory Lee because his content's amazing and you'll just be, you know, thinking, what is my next trip? Because he has so many options of local, like, within the US and also abroad destinations. But tune in next time for another amazing guest. And we just appreciate all of y'all for listening. So happy travels.
Yeah, thank you.